I'll get the music rolling.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Twins Off Daily podcast, brought to you by the fine folks at Twins Daily. I'm your gracious host, afternoon's show. My name's Sweet Lou Hennessy. I'm gathered here with Greggory T. Masterson and Theo Tollefson of Twins Daily, two of the tangiest summer sausages that we have at Twins Daily. I apologize for that. I consider myself a man of God, and Castellanos hits one to left field, and the score is now 4-0. Greg, Theo, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. How are we doing? Greg, let's start with you.
I'm doing terrific. My name is Greg Masterson, like Lou introduced me. I've been writing for about a year. Lou and I were part of the same, I like to call it like the freshman recruiting class of 2023, where all of a sudden like 7 or 8 new Twins Daily writers appeared out of the woodwork. That was a fun time.
Huge class.
But yeah, I'm doing well. I tried the summer sausage. I added some caramel to it, got a lot of hate online for it, but hey, the Twins won while I was eating it, so I'm going to live with it.
Love it. You're getting the W on that one. Joining me now, Theo Tollefson. What's going on, man? Coming live from beautiful CHS Field, home of the St. Paul Saints.
That is right. I'm here, covering some Saints baseball tonight as we record this. But I've just been working around, getting things done, as I've been doing for Twins Daily for the last 2.5 years. I started at a very weird time in November of 21, right before the lockout, and then we had to get very creative when the lockout was happening that winter. So seen a lot of ups and downs with the site, but we're in a good spot now, I'd say.
I would definitely agree with you on that part. I forgot to introduce us with our opening question that I have for the panel here. As you might remember from our last show, the question was, who is the most underrated Twin in our lifetime? This time we're going with, which current Twin do you think could eat the most hot dogs in one sitting and why? Greg, let's start with you. Who's getting the most glizzies down?
I am going with, he's not a huge guy, but I think it's going to be Willie Castro. He strikes me as one of those guys I think everybody knows, like those ridiculously athletic guys that it doesn't matter what they're doing. Like if you're like going to play doubles tennis and you have no idea which of your friends have played tennis, you're going to like, there's that one guy you're like, I guarantee you he's never played tennis, but he's going to be great. Willie Castro strikes me as that guy, like great at foosball and ping pong. I think that Willie Castro would be the person to down the most hot dogs.
He definitely seems like somebody who would have just a killer metabolism. I don't know. I can't describe it. But speaking of killer metabolisms, Theo, what do we got, my brother?
Speaking from experience, I don't think it would be myself. Maybe if we did a Twins Daily one, I just don't like hot dogs that much, but my metabolism might say otherwise. Going to the Twins, though, I would say it's Joe Ryan.
Ooh, I can see that. I could definitely see that. I could kind of see him going for some like vegan hot dogs, though. I don't know. He gives me that vibe. Something about him. But
I think he can devour like 5 or 6 of them and then still keep going.
Right.
Something's got to fuel those bike rides.
Exactly. I mean, he burns it off that way.
There we go. I think I'm going to go with Ryan Jeffers, because when I've been in the clubhouse in the past couple of years after a game, especially after the clincher when they were spraying champagne and everything, he came out of their little kitchenette that they have, and he was holding 2 absolutely gargantuan pieces of pizza luce right after that game and housing them while, people were drinking, throwing things around. He was in the corner. He was chowing down like his life depended on it. And look, newsflash, athlete likes to eat. Okay, we get it. But still, I'm going to go with Ryan Jeffers. I think he's got the size, and I think he's got the capacity to put a few down. That's for sure. Well, that was fun. Awesome. Our next segment here that we're going to jump into is our rapid recap since our last show, which was on April 18th. So here we go. Rapid recap. And rapid recap is sponsored by the internet. Do you want something to consume your attention for 14 hours every day and makes you feel super bad most of the time? Try the internet, available virtually anywhere except for Cody Schoenman's home while we're trying to record a podcast episode. All right, boys, rapid recap. Let's see what's new with the Twins. I don't know. It's been kind of ho-hum. No, they've won 10 in a row. They are on a killer heater since our last show. They are 1-12, I believe. So, or no, sorry. They are 2-11. They lost 2 to the Detroit Tigers in their first series. They won one of them. And then from there, they started their killer run with 4 against Chicago, 3 against the Los Angeles Angels, and then 3 more against Chicago that they just wrapped up. Boys, what are we thinking? Everybody's a buzz. Greg, let's start with you. What have been your initial thoughts?
I want to harken back to what I said on episode 1. I believe I called this stretch "What Seasons Are Made Of." And I don't know if there's been a more apt description when I was saying, listen, when you've got 7 against the White Sox and 3 against the Angels, like these are the times that you need to get fat on the division, on AL teams, and rack up wins. I did not think that they were actually going to rattle off, an 11-2 run that kicked all my expectations out of the water. I was hoping 9-4, you're able to get back to 500. But now, we've seen them do a lot more than that.
Yeah, definitely. What, Greg, what do you think is kind of the biggest factor that's been their turnaround in these last couple of weeks?
I think it's the power of teamwork and believing in yourself.
Always.
Actually, it is, we can talk about the sausage all we want.
And we will.
But there definitely is something to that energy within a team, but also they're hitting the ball. It would have been nice if they tried that for like the first half of the season. Crazy what happens when you just kind of put the ball in play. Crazy what happens when you put the ball in play against the White Sox. Sometimes you have to force them to get you out on a routine play and they don't. So I think that's been a huge part of it, but also, bats waking up. It's no longer kind of a graveyard at the bottom of the order. There aren't a bunch of OPSs in the 3s right now, which goes a long ways.
Definitely. I absolutely concur with you. Theo, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think I had a piece in Zone Coverage last Monday saying that it was now or never to really just get on a run and just recover, because if you can't do well in this part of the schedule, that will define the rest of your season. And they were fortunate enough to do the opposite and succeed against the teams they absolutely should have. And if we want to talk about bad defense, that was not just unique to the White Sox. They took advantage of that a lot against the Angels this last weekend. And I think to build off of what Greg was saying with the bats, I mean, they were just not waiting for that perfect pitch, which I think was such a theme throughout the first 3 weeks of the season, especially when they were playing Baltimore, where it was a lot of bats just stuck, froze where they were, and just waiting for the perfect pitch to go right down the middle. And even when they were swinging it out, those that were close enough, they were just going right into the teeth of defense. So they just reset themselves, and all's well, at least offensively. Pitching wise, there's still some room for growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the pitching really, for the most part, held their own. We didn't see a stretch this time like we may have in the first half of last year when the Twins starting rotation absolutely carried them to they're about 500 right at the All-Star break. So they really rode that rotation pretty hard last year. This time, this little winning streak, like Greg said, there's no longer the black hole at the bottom of the lineup with the last 4 or 5 guys. We've seen some call-ups that have become major contributors. I'm talking about Jose Miranda. I'm talking about Trevor Larnach when he got healthy and returned. Those two have been incredible for the last 2 weeks. You're getting contributions from guys like Austin Martin. I think that's been huge for them as well. And but the biggest factor to me is definitely going to be Carlos Santana, Kyle Farmer, and Willie Castro kind of pulling themselves up out of that really big hole that they dug for themselves. And look, they're not out of the woods yet. They really ate against the Chicago White Sox and the Los Angeles Angels, as they should have if they want to be a contending team. But I think they showed some real gumption, and they showed that, I think in years past we've seen that if they're down later in the ball game, it's looking like a pretty tough mountain to climb. But in this stretch, we've seen them really claw back at it. Today was a perfect example. They were down by a couple runs in the mid to late innings, and they just scratched their way through. So we kind of talked about it already, but let's go around and talk about who's hot and who's really concerning us. We talked enough about who's hot. Greg, who's caught your eye for concerning reasons?
I don't know, it's hard to find like a real big flashing concern when your team just won 10 in a row. And it's, I noticed that you were talking about, the veterans at the bottom of the order who are hitting now, and you named off Castro and Santana and Farmer have been, picking it up. Manuel Margot is one of those names down at the bottom of the order who is a veteran. I love to call him Manny Magoo, affectionately, of course.
Sure.
But especially when when we just finished up watching them go through 2 series with Chicago, and in the second one, Tommy Pham was running around in center field. It reminds you of the discussions that were happening all off season, whether it was going to be Adam Duvall or Michael A. Taylor or Tommy Pham, and it ended up being Manuel Margot. And, he's I looked it up last night. He's got a 105 OPS plus against lefties, which is what he's kind of brought in to do, which is better than average, certainly, but it's not exactly knocking lefties around. And if he's not playing center field, both Austin Martin and Willie Castro are playing center field over him right now. Neither of them are natural center fielders. And I think Margot has 4 innings in center field all season. So he's essentially a corner outfielder, a right-handed corner outfielder. And you really want to see more than an OPS plus of 105 versus lefties, especially if that's really all he's doing right now is starting against lefties. The last part that I wanted to say on that, I'm blanking on. So we'll finish that thought then.
You know what? Kind of going along with that, though, I haven't been extremely impressed with his defense in the corner outfield spots either. I've seen him come up short on a couple of balls, and it's early on. I think it's too early to judge somebody on 1 month like that. But for somebody in a marginal role, which he's in, he's probably. We know how Rocco likes to kind of do those line shifts and have righties come in mid game or lefties come in mid game. So he's probably going to get a few innings of action most games. You would have to imagine, especially just where their roster's at. I need him to stand out more in the corner outfield spot, especially if he can't play center. It's one thing if you're just holding your own in center and you're really good in the corners, but I have not been super impressed with him in the corners. And yeah, like you said, there's not a lot of margin for error when it comes to his bat against lefty pitching, because that's his biggest role on this club right now, is to come in as a pinch hitter. Theo, what are you thinking? Who's caught your eye for concerning reasons on the Twins?
Well, I'm going to actually go to the bullpen for the 2 lefties that are currently in there right now, both Caleb Thielbar and Stephen Okert. Thielbar getting on the mound a couple of these nights and during this last 10-game 10-game win streak. I should correct myself on that and not say homestand. Anyway, but Thielbar has gotten himself into jams and barely escaped them. Monday night was the example of that, where he had runners down the corners, 2 outs, but one wrong pitch could have definitely turned into them losing the win streak and not getting it to where it is. And Stephen Okert just hasn't looked as sharp, and I've been a huge fan of him and asking the Twins to get him dating back to July of 2022, and they finally did. But, I think being a slider first pitcher is definitely there's only so much you can work with when you have a fastball and then occasionally a changeup in there. I mean, that's what relievers do. They have their 2 to 3 pitches, but being slider first really can get you into trouble. But we'll see. It's still early. It's only May 1st as we record this, so we'll see where things turn around from here.
Absolutely. And, Okert, he impressed me in the first few weeks. He had a pretty good stretch there, and his stuff looked very sharp. I still think he can definitely be a usable piece in this bullpen. But, yeah, he's gotten beat around a little bit here. The good news is that with Joan Duran coming back, being activated from the injured list yesterday, and having Caleb Thielbar back as an additional lefty, I think will do him some good. He'll get some lower leverage spots against lefties maybe earlier in the game. So I still have a lot of faith in Stephen Okert, but yeah, you're right. It's been kind of concerning. And Thielbar, there's just always this feeling that, look, he's in his late 30s, and the bill comes due. You know what I mean? And I'm not ready to call him cooked or anything like that by any means, but there's going to be a time when that is the case. You know what I mean?
Like one of these days, his curveball is just going to be a changeup. You know,
Sure,
like it's
sure.
going to be flat.
Right. Yeah.
Or
And
just his fastball doesn't have the bite that he can use some of those complementary pitches off of it. I'm hoping that he can continue to shake the rust off and play a really key role, because he's been honestly one of the best lefty relievers in franchise history, right? He's
Oh
got
yeah.
like 4+ seasons in his current stretch with the club with an ERA in the low threes, I want to say. That's solid. That's rock solid. And he's gotten some really key outs for them. So getting him back to where he was at previously is going to be huge. For me, concern. Oh boy, it's hard. It's easy to say Byron Buxton right now. For those listening, we are discussing this after the Twins win against the White Sox on Wednesday afternoon. Byron Buxton left the game early with what the Twins are calling right knee soreness. That's his tricky right knee. Hopefully it's just a minor precaution, but it was not fun seeing him pull up lightly when he was trying to steal second base there. And not to mention, even before the injury, he was not necessarily hitting at a clip that we're going to expect of our star player. There's a lot of talk about him being a middle of the order piece, and right now he's hitting kind of like a 7 or an 8 hitter. A lot of strikeouts, not a lot of walks. He's come through with some pretty clutch doubles, frozen ropes down the line and everything. So hopefully he can kind of find that, get his head right, and definitely needs to get his knee right. That's for sure. Moving on here, though, let's talk about some minor leaguers that have caught our eye in the last few weeks. Gregory, who are you thinking? Preferably somebody that is not on the minor league injured list.
I'm going to go with Brandon Winokur. Just one of the most exciting, I think, players in the Twins system right now. I asked a few months ago, like, have we seen somebody who is like more toolsy in like recent Twins drafts? And everybody piled on me to say, like, literally Walker Jenkins was right, like a few rounds before him. And I'm like, okay, fine, not including him. But after a slow start, he has been heating up over the last couple of weeks. It's exciting to just see, like, especially when you're talking about these very toolsy guys, it's like, okay, are they gonna be able to put it together? Like, are the skills going to be able to follow the tools? And so, slow start to the season, you start wondering, like, okay, like, is he just kind of out of his element? But he's turned it on in the last couple of weeks. Has a great slash line, and it's fun to see him start to hit.
Definitely. I think he's going to be somebody that is going to absolutely shoot up the Twins daily prospect rankings. I want to say he's in the top 10 already, or at least he was in the onset of the season here. He's got to be close, but I think as more and more of the Twins prospects graduate off the list or are removed from the list for one reason or another, I think Winokur's going to wind up in the top 5 in the next couple of years here, because he's got some really, really huge raw numbers, or just kind of exit velocity and everything coming off his bat. He absolutely wallops the ball when he gets a hold of one. Theo, who do you got as a minor leaguer that has caught your eye?
Yeah, well, Winokur currently sits at number 10 exactly on Twins Daily Prospect ranking, so he will definitely climb up that once some people ahead of him graduate. Most likely Austin Martin will be the first of those groups. But we're not going to talk about Austin Martin, even though he's in the Saints lineup today. I think he's still that prospect, but I think we need to talk about a couple other guys down here. First note, Anthony Prado, who is really off to a hot start, not in terms of how many hits he's getting, but he's drawn a ton of walks. Last time I looked at this, and I'm going to pull the stat up right now and just keep rambling, but last time I looked at this, I mean, the man last week had 12 hits on the season, but 20 walks, and his on-base percentage is just crazy high. And looking at the stats right now, it's currently sitting at a 475. He's got 24 walks to 19 hits and only 5 extra base hits and no home runs, but it's just phenomenal what he's doing, and he is that type of the guy that if it comes to it, injuries really get to the point where the Twins have to call him up. You put him at the top of the lineup, he's going to get on base, even if it's not by a hit. And then he's going to be a little more aggressive on the base pass than some of the guys have been. And he might get caught stealing a few times here and there, but overall, he's definitely someone to keep an eye on as a potential call-up later in the season. But it might still be a while before that comes around.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think he's on the cusp of making a major league debut or anything like that, but I think that he could be in that group of players that are kind of unheralded or kind of down list prospects that if given an opportunity, they could really shine in a limited role. So I think that'll be really exciting to track him with the Saints, especially. And then, knocking on wood here, hopefully the Twins' injury woes remain out of the picture. But if they inevitably come back in, he could be an option later down the line here. So that's really interesting. The prospect that has caught my eye is not actually on the Twins, but has a Minnesota connection. George Clausen was drafted last season out of the University of Minnesota by the Philadelphia Phillies in the 6th round. He had a really big fastball, one of the biggest in the class, I want to say, especially for college pitchers, and a really nasty, I think it was his slider. But his control was all over the place. I think he had as many walks as strikeouts, as electric as that is. That's why he is a 6th rounder as a college draftee. But with the Phillies so far this year, in 4 starts and 21 innings pitched, he has a 0 ERA. Sounds pretty good. His strikeout rate is 43.2% so far, which is sky high. And his walk rate is just 6.8%. That's only 2.1 per 9 innings. So small sample size, admittedly, at single A in his first, taste of professional ball. But that's pretty huge. I think those are awesome, really exciting numbers. And if he keeps that sort of performance up as, let's see, I want to say he's 23 years old right now. He's 22. In a few years, he could be a name that we're talking about as the pride of the Gophers.
Should the Twins trade Max Kepler for him?
You know what? You had me at trade Max Kepler. I'm just kidding. I like Max Kepler. I like speculating. That's it.
Do you really want to put Manny Magoo in that type of role to play every day then?
What's that Wallner kid up to these days?
He's batting third tonight, so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Look at that. We have a correspondent right at the field live during our show. It's massive. Moving on, we are going to quick.
I guess the bumper's not working.
Okay, well, you know what? It's not clicking.
Producer Lenny is not picking it up.
Producer Lenny back in the corner. Anyway, picks to click. In this segment, our panel goes around and we draft, I guess you could say, a current Twin that we think is going to lead the team, or at least lead our selections in a given category between now and our next show. So since our last show, the category that we were looking at are pitcher strikeouts, most pitcher strikeouts between last episode, which was on April 18th, between then and now. So going over our selections, Nick Nelson was on the panel. He picked Cole Sands. Sands ended up that streak with 8 strikeouts. Cody Schoenman picked Sweet Lou Varland, who only had 1 abbreviated start after that time and only struck out 2. And the 2 champions sharing the crown for this week are Greggory T. Masterson, who picked Joe Ryan, who had 17 strikeouts, and Sweet Lou Hennessy, who had Bailey Ober, who also had 17 strikeouts, just barely snuck in for the tie after this afternoon's game against the Chicago White Sox. So our all-time standings in our abbreviated campaign on the Twins Off Daily podcast has Lou and Greg at the top with 1 win each, and Matt Braun, Nick Nelson, Cody Schoenman at 0. So let's move on to our new picks, which is going to be most home runs hit between now and the next show. So I'm going to ask you guys who you think is going to hit the most home runs and the reason for your choice. Let's start with you, Gregory.
I am going to go with our friend who skipped a rehab assignment. So might take a little bit of time to get warmed back up, but I'm going to go with Carlos Correa. Healthy Correa might be able to do this. And I want to take this time to just point out that it's not great that he didn't go on a rehab stint, but apparently he's fine. Apparently after today, he kind of put it together. But also, I want to say that Carlos Correa is one of the people who is, even if he's not hitting, he's able to kind of do a lot on the field, including cutting a man down at home plate. Yesterday was that? I was getting ready to complain about Carlos Correa skipping his rehab, and then had happened. I said, well, he just saved a run, and the run saved is a run earned. But yeah, I'm going to go with Carlos Correa heating up after coming back and putting on the Superman cape.
Yeah, to his credit, he hit a few lasers this first series back with the club, or the
Yeah.
first couple series that he's had with the club. So, yeah, you know what? Maybe his injury that he suffered in Detroit on that chilly night maybe wasn't as severe as they anticipated, and they were being, with an oblique, you don't mess with that. You
Right.
you got to rest that for a considerable amount of time, and that's what they were under the impression that he was suffering with. But with the intercostal strain from being sick, I'm wondering if maybe he's been healthy for a sizable amount of time right now. For the last week or so.
As soon as he got rid of the sniffles, he was ready
Yeah,
to go.
yeah, exactly. So those sniffles, man, they'll get you.
They will.
Theo, what are we thinking?
Well, I'm going to go with fellow Puerto Rican on the team and a long admirer and friend of Carlos Correa, Jose Miranda. He's going to have a lot more playing opportunities in this upcoming stretch, and I think he's really going to show his own, like he did when he was first called up at this time 2 years ago. And we'll finally see a good power streak that has been absent from his arsenal for a long while.
That's a good pick. He's looked so much more comfortable this year than he did at any point last season. And I'm not just saying that because he can actually throw a baseball now, which he had trouble with last year with the shoulder injury. But he just looks so much more comfortable at the plate. He has a better idea of what he's trying to do up there. He doesn't look so blindsided by some of the breaking stuff that he's seen. I really like that pick. He was definitely up there for me as well. I am going to go for having the most home runs between now and next show. I'm going to go with the big guy, Trevor Larnach. He is another guy who has come up recently after his injury list stint, and once he replaced Wallner, and he's looked very comfortable as well. He's always struggled with those breaking pitches, and I don't think he's out of the woods yet, but he certainly looks more comfortable. At least he has a better game plan, which is so weird because that was something that every Twins hitter seemingly really struggled with the first couple of weeks of this season. So it's been really refreshing to see him come up and have some success. When he came up on that Tuesday game against the Chicago White Sox, and they were down 5-2, I believe, and I think it was the seventh inning, and he came in and launched one into that dock section or near the dock section.
Yeah, it was that one.
That was huge, and you could just see the confidence fuming from his body as he rounded the bases, even though they were still down by 1 run, because he knows even though they're still trailing, that's a monumental step for the team to take, and they eventually came back and won that game. So huge for Trevor Larnach. I think he's going to keep that stretch going, and it looks like he's got plenty of leash to get some DH at-bats and lots of play in the outfield with Wallner being sent down. Okay, so we will put that in the notes here that you guys hear that? That's the sound of Greggory's Gripes, a new segment. Gregory, please play that music again and dive right back into it.
A new segment. We just did a Greggory's Gripes last week. Do I need to complain harder?
No comment. Please, what is your next gripe, Greg?
Okay, so I've got a gripe. And this might honestly, I might be setting the bar too high here because this might be the most contentious gripe that I have ever had. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to top it.
That's saying something from you.
I hate bark in the park. There is no reason that we should be bringing dogs to a baseball field. Baseball is for people to watch other people play. I do not enjoy dogs who are bat boys. I do not enjoy the dogs that bring out the balls to the umpires. I think it's all a sick gimmick. Ty Cobb didn't die for this. People go to baseball games. Dogs don't. When are we going to have cats at the park? When are we going to have iguanas at the park? Why do dogs of all animals get to go? They're not Air Bud. If they were Air Bud, sure, but they're not. They can't play baseball. They don't understand it. Why are you dragging your dog to the park? The dog wants to go to the real park, the dog park, anything but sitting in concrete seats, watching you watch the game and then barking at each other. What's the point?
Oh boy, Betsy Helfand of the Pioneer Press. I can hear steam coming out of her ears because of how much she notably loves dogs. Gregory, that's a huge gripe, man. Just for one game a year, you can't allow dogs in the stadium. What's going on?
It's annoying. I love dogs, and I want to put that out there. I enjoy dogs. I don't have a dog. I hope to someday have a dog again, but I don't know. oh, now I'm going to get into more, but like this might be even worse. I don't like when the dogs are in the purses or the strollers or go to the store or whatever, unless they're supposed to, unless you have an accommodation, of course. But I just think that dogs take up too much of a place in Americans' lives, and bark at the park is just one more step. Listen, if I was a dog, the last thing that I would want to do is go to sit in a concrete stadium and watch people throw around balls that I can't go fetch. Okay? It's mean to the dogs.
You know what? I didn't think about it like that.
You
That's
do have
an
a point
interesting point.
there, but since I am in a ballpark where you can, in fact, bring a cat to the ballpark for anything on a leash and I mean anything. People have brought bearded dragons. They've brought snakes to CHS Field because that's what the Saints do. So you just got to get to a Saints game and bring your cat.
Wait, sorry. Do they like every game? You can just
No.
bring them in?
No, it's one game a year. It's just, instead of their bark in the park, it's anything on a leash. So infer to that as you will.
That's actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Infer to that what you will, but at the same time, people have brought snakes, which can't do that. They brought the bearded dragons and they brought their cats. So, just come to that game and that will make up for your gripe.
You know what? Somebody tried to bring bees to the Diamondbacks game last night. Why not? I mean, you can't put a leash on those, but I don't know.
Did you guys
Greggory,
see of the bee catcher who's like trained his whole life to not bee catcher, I guess, bee herder, bee farmer, beekeeper. There we go, a beekeeper. Like, can you imagine being a beekeeper? I've got a friend who's a beekeeper. I can't imagine like training your entire life to keep bees and then finally getting your moment in the sun to like go on a scissor lift and go remove bees in front of a stadium of I don't know how many thousand people there were last night. Like that guy, like that was the peak of his existence.
Dude, and he milked it. I don't know if you saw that. He was pumping up the crowd. They had an entrance music for him. I think they were playing I'm a Bee by Black Eyed Peas. Dude, I had a lot of fun with that, and I really want to see like a montage of that guy doing what he does to set to the tune of like One Shining Moment or something, because I love that guy got an opportunity. So that's awesome. Greggory, that was a great gripe. Thank you very much for bringing your grouchy self over here. But you know what? It's time for our next game, and that is something that we like to call Immaculate Greg.
And before we get to Immaculate Greg, we have an ad read. Has this ever happened to you? You can't sleep. You just wrote tomorrow's lineup and you are DHing your all-star catcher. It keeps the bat in the lineup, but what if the backup catcher gets hurt? A ball to the neck? Turf toe? What'll happen? Will you have to lose your DH for 2 whole innings? The humanity. But what if I told you there was an easier way? For just 120 plate appearances a year and a wasted bench spot, you can carry every manager's best friend, the third catcher. Call now 555-CATCHER and get yours now before Drew Butera is the only one left. All right. So thanks for a word from our sponsors. We're going to jump into Immaculate Greg. So if you have not been around for an Immaculate Greg before, and if you are, if you're on YouTube, you can see an Immaculate Greg in front of you. If not, we'll talk you through it. But an Immaculate Greg is a riff on Immaculate Grid. We, in Immaculate Greg, have a 2x2 grid, and we are trying to name players at the intersection of 2 different categories. So if you've been living under a rock and you haven't played Immaculate Grid, I suggest that you do. But we do a little bit of a Twins twist on ours. We are looking for Minnesota Twins. Everybody is a Minnesota Twin, no matter what categories we're talking about. Today, our categories on the top, we have the Cincinnati Reds. So was at one point a Cincinnati Red, and center field. So at one point, at least, doesn't have to be an all-time center fielder, but has to be somebody who has played center field. Along the side, there are 2 categories, are a Piranha or a Piranha-like player. If you are, younger than Theo, you might not remember the original Piranhas, but they were a collection of 2006, we'll just call them slappy hitters. Not a lot of pop, just kind of put the ball in play and dinked and dunked and blooped and hoped that everything would go well. Maybe tried to bunt for a hit. And Ron Gardenhire loved to bat them 8, 9, 1, 2, which led to Ozzie Guillen eventually calling them these little piranhas that you just can't get rid of them. They just bite and bite and bite. So that is one of our categories. The other category on the side is going to be shortstop. So we are going to start in the top left with the Cincinnati Red, who was also a piranha. I am going to pull up a clock. I'm going to give Theo and Lou 1 minute to come up with as many players as they can in that category. I have selected a former Twin who was a Red and a Piranha or Piranha-like, for example. And they're going to see if they can together figure out who it is just by throwing out as many names as qualify as possible, and they will have 1 minute. Fellas, any questions or anything I missed?
Let's get right into it, baby.
Yep.
Let's go.
All right. You are on the clock for a Piranha who was a Red.
All right, Theo, what do you got?
Todd Walker.
Todd Walker. Okay. All right. That could be a good option. Anybody else coming to mind? What
I do have someone else, but I think they could also.
You can just throw out as many names
the
as
Cincinnati
you want.
Reds and shortstop. So, I want to save the name I have for the second one, who could also be someone you have.
Boy,
I think we got to go Todd Walker for this.
Let's go Todd Walker. I don't know if we're going to beat that.
You don't want to throw out any more names?
For that category, no, because I know
you can
exactly
double
what
up.
I want to do.
I'm totally okay with you doubling up.
Okay, if we double up, then Juan Castro.
Yep. That's a good one. Gregory, what did you come up with? What are we trying to get here?
I should have never told you that you could add one.
Oh,
because it was Juan Castro,
the legend.
He was actually a Piranha. He was around for that 2006 team. He registered like 60 games, I believe, and he was such a Red that you can't find a picture of him, like a headshot of him with the Twins. They're all just of the Reds. So wanted to throw him on. Good job. I don't know how many points you get for getting it right, but you got that one right. Okay. So now your second one, it's going to be a Piranha or somebody like a Piranha who also played center field. Again, throw out as many names as you'd like.
Okay.
I mean, Jason Tyner, Ben Revere.
I mean, Jason Tyner was more of a designated hitter. Let's be honest.
Fair.
No, but okay. Ben Revere. Yep, that's a good one. A lot of singles, a lot of doubles.
A little more power, but not much than Revere.
Who is that? Who is that last one?
Span.
Denard Span. Yeah, that would be a good one.
Denard Span was an original or a 2008 Piranha.
Yeah, 2008. Okay, so yeah, he was kind of adopted.
Yeah, then we'll do. If he said it's a 2008 Piranha, then we might as well just do Denard Span.
Oh,
I'm not saying that it was necessarily a 2008, but I'm saying like Denard Span literally was a Piranha. He was like a Piranha during his days.
If you feel strongly about Denard Span, let's do it. But just knowing Gregory, I feel like he picked Jason Tyner. Just knowing him, I don't know. What do you think, Theo? I'll give you the final call.
The man who gripes would definitely pick a Jason Tyner.
Okay, let's go Tyner.
Well, I used a Piranha Light in this case, and I think. Oopsies.
Oh, man. Whoa.
Our friend Williams Astudillo was definitely a Piranha type. Not much pop, just swing the bat, hope it goes somewhere right. And he did play center field at least once. See, they're not always so easy as our friend Juan Castro.
Sure. Oh, Williams. That's a great pick, though. I guess I never really considered him as a Piranha. I considered him a golden god. But, that's really interesting to see. Let's go on to the next square.
Okay, so Scout's Honor, did you see I accidentally flashed it? Did you see who I have?
Yeah, I did.
But let's talk about some other options before we get to
We will talk about some other options.
So in that 2006,
we've got class. Reds who were playing shortstop for our audio only.
Leo Cardarnes, he's all the way back in the 60s, 70s. He played for the Reds and Twins. He's an option.
Boy, back in the 60s, Gregory. You were probably what, in your mid-50s back then?
I just celebrated my 50th wedding anniversary at that
Yes.
time, actually.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, a little younger, but yeah.
Okay. Would we consider Kyle Farmer to, be a shortstop in this sense? I know he
I mean,
hasn't
he
played much
did
for this
play
year.
shortstop last year, so
Yep, he did, and I think he still will at some point this year. I know it's easy because he's a current Twin, but you know what, bro? Let's go with your guy from the '60s. Who was that?
Leo Cardenas.
Okay, let's go with that. But we know who Greg picked. Greg, who did you pick?
I went with Donovan Solano. Unfortunately, I realized, like after I just flashed this, that he actually never played short for the Twins. So I'm not sure if that was breaking a Greg's rules. I'm not sure if I stipulated that he had to play short for the Twins or not, but he was a shortstop. He was a Red. He was a shortstop. No, I don't think he was a shortstop with the Reds even. Yeah, that was a little bit overboard on that. So
You know what,
once we
Gregory?
figure out how many points these are worth, I guess we'll have a leaderboard. But moving on to this last one, actually, this is my behind backup catchers. This is my favorite player type. Some guy who can play shortstop and then can also play center field.
All right, Theo. One name came for me for these two positions that I know he played with the Twins. I'm going.
And that would be. Say that again.
I'm going with Mr. Danny Santana.
Danny Santana is a good choice for that. Yeah.
Anything come to mind for you?
Outside of Santana, not really.
Okay. Well, let's go with Danny.
Danny Santana. I mean, there's literally a shortstop center fielder on the Twins right now.
I mean, Willie Castro too. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
There is one. Yeah.
Last year, Nick Gordon.
Oh, well, shortstop, question mark?
Did he play shortstop?
I mean,
did he?
Not last year, but he did at one point.
People were celebrating in 2021 every time he got a start over Andrelton Simmons towards the end of the year.
That is true. That was the thing.
Did he play shortstop, actually? I thought
he did it. He did when he got called up.
Yeah.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
It was none of those.
Okay.
It was everybody's mother's favorite player, Nick Punto.
Oh, how could we forget the shredder?
I feel like Nick Punto is going to show up on these grids quite often, so prime yourself for that. No pun intended for Twins Twitter.
Immaculate Punto.
All right, so we have in the top left a Piranha who was a Red was Juan Castro, a Piranha who was a center fielder, or I guess played center field at least once. Williams Astudillo, a Red who was a shortstop. That was Donovan Solano, and a shortstop and a center fielder. Everybody's mother's favorite player, Nick Punto. Thank you for humoring me through Immaculate Greg.
Oh, it was a doozy this time, Greg. That was a good show. I'm really happy that we were able to squeeze that in. But all good things must come to an end. We are going to move to the post-game high five segment of our show. So let's take a quick look ahead at the schedule for the Twins. They are off on Thursday, obviously, hence this episode. But they're coming home for 3 games against the middling Boston Red Sox. Then they're going to play 4 games set at home against the Seattle Mariners, whose pitching is absolutely scorching red hot. That's going to be a big test for these bats that have eaten in the last couple of weeks. And then they have 3 games north of the border in Toronto. And after that leads us to our next episode, which is going to take place on Monday, May 13th. I will throw out the caveat that there's always going to be the possibility that we do an impromptu mini episode if there is a rain out between now and then. But that's all we got for you today. I'd like to thank Gregory and Theo for being here with me today. Gregory, Theo, what are you guys working on that you'd like to throw out there? Anything coming up on the docket for Twins Daily?
Yeah, I'm working on a kind of I can't think of the word, but what would it take basically for Max Kepler to get a qualifying offer? Maybe like throw out some comps who have and haven't in recent years. Also, for the nerdiest among us, it sounds like StatCast is going to be releasing some bat speed data in the coming weeks. They've been hinting at that for a little bit. And so I would love to look at somebody like Matt Wallner's bat speed data, see if I can find any patterns. He swings the heck out of that. So see that coming maybe in the next few weeks.
Awesome. I'm really excited to read those. Theo, anything you're working on that you'd like to plug right now?
Yeah, well, I got an interview I did earlier today with Tony Kemp when I just arrived at the ballpark. So we'll have a good feature story on, what he's up to since he's been bouncing around from 3 different organizations, including the Twins this spring, and finally settling in here in St. Paul, kind of in a leadership role. So there will be one like that. And I'm hoping to get Austin Martin here before he is back up. And we got to ask him the important question. Have you been around the sausage, and did it make you feel sick just knowing it was not refrigerated? So we gotta ask him about the sausage.
I thought the question was going to be how many hot dogs can you eat in one sitting? I mean,
they're kind of related.
I do want to, before we sign off, I do want to say I am a little bit curious as to whether the sausage makes it through customs and gets into Toronto later this week.
I don't think it does. No, absolutely not.
Shipping it inside of a shoe like this, like if you're like in customs and you find some old meat inside of a shoe going into your country, I think you have a responsibility as a citizen to prevent that.
I don't know, man.
I think one of the beat reporters said that they are going to throw it out once they lose their next game. And just with how strong Boston and Seattle's pitching has been, I think it's fair to say there will be a loss before they have to have that problem.
I don't know. I think it finds
not that we want it, but I think it's very viable that it will not, and they will lose and throw it out.
They can just lose and, make me stop worrying that it's going to happen. Just get it over with so I can stop caring about a streak.
I don't know, guys. I think this sausage is making its way north of the border. Let's just say love finds a way. So we'll see what happens, I guess. But as for myself, I have something releasing later this week about a really exciting addition to the Twins coaching staff. So keep an eye on that. But on behalf of Greggory T. Masterson, Theo Tollefson, I'm Sweet Lou Hennessy. Thank you so much for joining us on the Twins Off Daily Podcast.
I hit the wrong button.